couple of other things that you'll find under the admin menu. So permissions in the system are defined by roles, and this is just like CalAg permits and CalPETS. So in your production system, you just have the administrator role, which is what your account has, Jen. And in the test system here, I created a couple of other example roles that you can use as kind of a guide. So I created an ag user role, and this will show you all the different permissions that are available in the CalCATS system. And there's a description, a table that gives you a listing of these and exactly what they mean. But they're relatively self-explanatory. So a typical ag user is able to enter ag activity. That means they can fill out reports 1 through 10. They can enter straight time, simple tracking, and custom tracking time, which are the 3 direct entry methods for the timesheet. But they can't do things like approve their own timesheets or approve someone else's timesheet. They can't interact with the weights and measures revenue module. This assume user identity, that's a really important one, and we'll go over that when we talk about the timesheet approval process. Can't modify the county configuration, can't manage users, that type of thing.
Makes sense.
Let's take a look at the ag supervisor role. And in here, you'll notice I added things like approve timesheets and log on as a different user, modify the configuration so they can manage that list of track types and species and so on. But I didn't add in here enter ag activity and enter straight time and enter simple tracking and enter custom tracking time. And that's really to illustrate the idea that roles are, you're granted all the permissions for all the roles that you have. So they're combinatorial, meaning someone who's an ag supervisor should probably also be an ag user.
Okay.
So, if I create a role for one of your senior biologists, I would give them the ag user role and the ag supervisor role, whereas for one of your junior staff, I would just give them the ag user role.
Okay.
So the process of creating a user, again, pretty similar to CalPETS at least. Now let's go ahead and add a user. This is going to be someone who's going to be say a biologist. And I've been using tests. So I'll use test02 at County of Glenn. No, it's glencounty.net, right?
No, it is County of Glenn.
I was almost right there. There are some other fields in here for alternate contact methods. Most, when we start sending out automated notifications from CalCATS, they're going to go to a verified receipt address, meaning the system needs to believe that we've somehow verified that communication channel works. When you create users and you put in this primary email for their login, we automatically assume that that's a good email address. But the user can, if they want, switch and say, I don't want to get CalCATS notifications at this email address. Maybe it's too busy or whatever. I'd rather get it at my phone number. So they can put in a cell phone number and go through a process of verifying the cell phone number, which means we send them a test code and they enter the test code back into the system. And then they can choose that as their communication preference. So, your staff can choose what's the most effective notification method for them when we start sending out automated updates and reminders to finish your time sheet and that type of thing.
Okay.
So beyond the contact information, there is a supervisor slot, and I haven't created the senior bio yet, so I'll leave this blank for now. But one thing that we did that people asked for quite a bit in CalPETS is the supervisory relationship is hierarchical, meaning if Jen is the supervisor for me and Steph is the supervisor for Jen, well, if you're out of the office, Steph can still act as my supervisor because he inherits me as a report because you report to him.
Right.
Down the road, if you want to create new county locations, you can do that and assign people to different offices. Also down the road, if we develop custom timesheet exports for you, some counties have union contracts and those union employees have to print a different timesheet, and they have different timesheet categories that they use than the non-union employees. Then you'll be able to specify which timesheet type that user reports on.
Okay.
And then this is the default timesheet template, right? So we went through creating these, and I'm going to assign this person the staff timesheet template. That means which categories I'm going to see down the left-hand side of my time card whenever I create a new time card. HR employee ID, this is something that will print when we export a payroll timesheet. Again, right now, just to emphasize, we're not at the point yet with most counties where we can have the employee sign that timesheet and turn it in. But if you've got a print out of a bunch of CalCATS payroll timesheets that you want to use to reconcile with your payroll system, it helps to have the HR employee ID printed on there. And then we give them an initial password. You can type in a password here if you just want to use something simple like, summer 2020, or you can have the system generate a random password for you, and it will fill that random password in. I think I'll simplify things and just put in Glenn 2020. Okay, so we've created this user biologist one. We get a little message that says, hey, you created the user, but they don't have any roles assigned, which means they may be able to log in, but they won't be able to perform any functions. So we'll go ahead and hit the roles button right next to biologist one, and we'll say that's going to be an ag user.
Great.
And then just so we've got a full list here, I'm going to create a supervisor. And and for the supervisor account, we'll give them both the ag user and ag supervisor roles.
Okay.
So now that I do have a supervisor, I want to update biologist one and say, well, their supervisor is going to be supervisor one. And to illustrate that hierarchy, I'm going to go in and say, well, supervisor one, their supervisor is going to be me.
Okay.
Or actually, who am I logged in as? Oh, I'm logged in as county admin. Okay. So it's fairly quick to add in users. The other things here, I talked about the rates. If a user account gets locked out because they get an incorrect password too many times, you can just unlock their account just by clicking here.
Okay.
If they forget their password, you can reset their password here. It'll generate a new random password that you can give them. And whenever you create a user account, whatever password you put in for them, when they first log in, which you'll see in a minute because I'll log in as the supervisor here, they'll be required to change that. So you don't have to worry about trying to make a super secure initial password.
Great. And that's not time sensitive, is it? Like they don't have to log in the first time within a certain amount of time?
Nope, they do not.
Okay.
And right now we do not expire passwords, so it will not force you to change your passwords every 60 or 90 days.
Oh, wonderful. Like that.
Well, we're getting some pushback from some IT departments that want that. So, but if you don't want it, you don't have to.
I understand their side of the argument too.
Yeah.
Security purposes.
It just means it's going to be, Chevy Camaro 01, 02, 03, 04. Yeah. So there's one other column that we didn't talk about here, and that's expected hours. So for each kind of employee, I'm going to go over in this tab, and I'm just going to click on my dashboard. one of the things we have on the dashboard is kind of a red, green, orange indicator for the current payroll period or whatever payroll period you're looking at that says whether you've entered the expected number of hours for that day or not. Right? And green means, yeah, you're looking good for that day. Red means you haven't entered enough time. Orange means you've entered more than the expected hours, and we have to figure out how to assign your overtime.
Okay.
So understanding that not everyone has a regular 480 or 580 work week, we have the ability for the administrator to establish what their standard working payroll period looks like. And you can go in here and you can type in specific numbers of hours. They may not even work 80 hours a week. It may be a part-time person, and you'll just enter what hours they're expected to work each day of the week. Or you can use these standard buttons for a 1080, which is, two sets of 8-hour days. A 980 with the first Friday off, a 980 with the second Friday off, or an 880, which is every Friday off.
Oh, wow. All right.
So I'll just set these new users to a standard 1080 work week. And now when they log in, their little dashboard will indicate to them, where they need to go back and fill out their timesheet with some more hours.
Okay.
Is that a big deal to say that way, and then have them work on the weekends seasonally as well, or does that have to be switched?
It doesn't have to be switched at all. The only purpose it serves is to highlight this for them.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So
Okay.
if they know that normally they work 8 hours on a Friday, but they worked 4 hours this Friday and 4 hours this Saturday, they'll have, a little red and a little orange here, and they can just acknowledge it and say, yeah, that's okay. I know that was out of the ordinary, but I went ahead and did it.
Now, if you didn't set expected hours for the user, would they have any visual cues on that dashboard, or would it just be all white?
It would be zeros across the top, and it would be all green until they entered some hours. And then it would turn orange.
Orange. Okay.